This is Jo from Maths Tutor Me. Today we're doing our second lesson on ratio and rates, and today we are going to learn to simplify our ratios. So ratios can be simplified by multiplying or dividing each side by a number in order to make it as small as possible without going into fraction or decimal form. Okay, so simplifying them is a lot like just simplifying fractions. In fact, some of them even are fractions. Okay, so let me show you how to do that. Examples here. Simplify each of the following ratios. Number 1, 25 to 10. Now you can see that both of those numbers can be divided by 5. And that's exactly what we're going to do to simplify it. 25 divided by 5 is 5, and 10 divided by 5 is 2. Okay, always see, have a look there if there's anything else you can divide by. But that is as small or as simplified as we can get that ratio. Question 2, we have the ratio 28 to 49. We have a look at those and say, what can we divide each of those numbers by? We could divide each of them by 7. Okay, so you can even write that down if it helps. You go divide 7. You have to do the same thing to both of them. 28 divided by 7 is 4, and 49 divided by 7 is 7. Okay, and again, that is as simplified as it's going to get. In question 3, we have a ratio that has been written as a fraction, 8 over 12. So, what can we divide each of those numbers by? We could divide by, let's pick a smaller number this time. Let's just pick 2. I'm going to divide by 2 on the top, divide by 2 on the bottom. That's going to give me a 4 on the top, and on the bottom, if I divide that by 2, I will get a 6. Okay, but because I just chose a small number, because I chose 2, this can actually still be simplified further. I could divide this by 2 again. Okay, and that would give me 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. Okay, that can't be simplified any further. So I could have divided this fraction by 4 straight away to get straight to this answer. Sometimes you don't always see the biggest number straight away, so you might have to do a few steps to get to your answer, and that's okay too. In question 4, 42 cents to $1. Now, in my last lesson, you might remember that I said that ratio should always have the same units. Okay, so this one at the moment is not correctly written. We need to write those to have the same units. 42 cents and $1. Well, $1 can easily be changed to be 100 cents. So I can rewrite that as 42 to 100. Now, as long as they're both in cents, which they are now, I don't need to write cents and cents anymore. I can just write 42 to 100. Okay, now that they're in the same units, can I simplify? Well, I could definitely divide by 2. If I divide by 2, I'll get a 21 on this side, and on this side I will get 50. Okay, let's try another question like that. Number 5, 3 days and 6 hours. Okay, let's make those into the same units. It's usually easiest to change the bigger unit, which in this case is days, into the smaller unit, which is hours. So how many hours are in 3 days? Well, there are 24 hours in a day, so we would need to times 3 by 24. There are 72 hours in a day. So it would be 72 hours to 6 hours. Okay, now both of those numbers can be divided by 6. You may need to use your calculator to help you find out whether things actually divide or not. So you might get your calculator and go, 72, does that divide by 6? Oh yes, it does go nicely. Okay, so that gives me a 12. 6 divided by 6 goes once. All right, question 6, we have decimals in our ratios. We do not want decimals or fractions in our ratios. So in this case, you actually need to multiply by a factor of 10. Now, if there is one number after the decimal place, you'll just need to multiply both sides by 10. If there were 2 numbers after the decimal place, you would have to multiply by 100. If there were 3 numbers after the decimal place, you'd have to multiply by 1,000. So hopefully you see the idea that however many numbers are after the decimal point, that's how many zeros basically you need, because that is how many jumps you'll need to jump over, your decimal point will need to jump over. So in this question, I have one number here after the decimal point. Now I don't just multiply the one side, I still have to do it to both. I'm going to multiply it by 10. Okay? That means my decimal point jumps over one spot and gives me 18. And 6 times 10 is 60. Now my numbers though, although I've gotten rid of the decimals, they are still quite large and they can be simplified. So I can divide by 6. So if I go divide by 6, 18 divided by 6 goes 3 times, and 60 divided by 6 goes 10 times. Alright, let me show you that again, that technique again in question 7. Now both of these numbers have decimals, but let's just have a look at this one. This one's got 3. Okay, even though that one has 1, the biggest decimal here, the longest decimal I should say, has 3 places. So I would need to multiply by 1,000. The 3 zeros means I get to jump over 3 places, which will get rid of that decimal for me. So I have to do it to both sides. So it is going to make these numbers quite large. So multiplying 0.37 by 1,000, that's 3 jumps, 1, 2, 3, I will get 375. Multiplying 0.8 by 1,000, 1, I'll have to add zeros for the next 2 jumps, would be 800. You can use your calculator if you need to for those. Okay, now the decimals are gone, let's try to simplify. They're pretty big numbers. Hopefully you could see you could divide by 5. That would be a good place to start. Let's divide by 5. Alright, so 375 divided by 5 is going to give me, I'm going to write it over here, 75, 2, and let's do the other number, 800 divided by 5, 160. Now that can actually get more simplified. We could divide by 5 again. So 75 divided by 5 goes 15 times. 160 divided by 5 goes 32 times. Can that be simplified anymore? I could divide this by 3, but that doesn't divide by 3. I could divide by 5, that one doesn't divide by 5. No, it's not going to get any smaller, so my most simplified answer is the ratio 15 to 32. Alright, on to the questions with fractions. In order to get rid of fractions in your ratios, you need to multiply by the lowest common denominator. So I have 2 fractions here, one has a 5 and one has a 3 on the denominator. If I multiply those numbers together, I get 15. So what I will do is I'll multiply each fraction by 15. Okay, now some of you may be able to do that in your head. Some of you may need a calculator, and that is fine. So let's do that on the calculator. 4 over 5 times 15 equals 12. Okay, let's do the next one as well. Now we do 1/3. 1 over 3, there it is, there's the 1/3. And I need to multiply that by 15. Okay, so you see, that gets rid of the fractions. I get nice whole numbers. I have the ratio 12 to 5. That can't be simplified any further. That is the final answer. Another fractions question, question 9. Even for mixed numerals, that method that we just used will work. So my denominators are a 2 and a 3. I need to multiply by 6. That's the lowest common denominator. So be careful typing in your mixed numerals. 2 and 1 over 2 multiplied by 6 gives 15. And 1 and 2 over 3 multiplied by 6 gives 10. Okay, fractions are gone, but I can divide by 5, which will give me a 3, 2, 2 as the most simplified answer. Okay, so hopefully that was making sense. Now what I'd like you to do is pause the video and try these questions. They're just like the ones we've been looking at. See if you can remember how to do them on your own, and then restart the video to see your answers. Okay, question number 1. We're just trying to simplify these ratios. Both of these numbers here can be divided by 3. You don't need to write these numbers if you don't want to. It's just for you to help see what I'm doing. 15 divided by 3 goes 5 times. 21 divided by 3 is 7. So 5 to 7 should be the answer that you got for that one. Question 2, a ratio written as a fraction. I could divide by 9. Okay, let's divide the top and the bottom by 9. Divide by 9, divide by 9. That would give me 18 divided by 9 goes 2 times, and 45 divided by 9 goes 5 times. So 2 over 5. Question 3, we need to put these into the same units. So let's change hours into minutes. 2 hours, well 1 hour is 60 minutes, so 2 hours is going to be 120 minutes and 30 minutes. So 120 to 30. Then we can simplify. Well, because we have zeros on both sides, we can divide by 10 straight away, which will get rid of those zeros. 12 and 3 can be divided by 3. Okay, 12 divided by 3 is 4, and 3 divided by 3 is 1. So 4 to 1 is your best answer there. Question 4, we have different units here again. 1.8 centimeters and millimeters here, 12 millimeters. So let's change our centimeters to millimeters. There is 10 centimeters to a millimeter. So I said that wrong. There is 10 millimeters to 1 centimeter. Sometimes my tongue gets carried away, I think. So I need to multiply this by 10, which is 18. There is 18 millimeters in 1.8 centimeters. And this one doesn't change, 12. 18 to 12, both in millimeters now. They can both be divided by 6. Okay, 18 divided by 6 is 3. 12 divided by 6 is 2. Done. Alright, question 5, we have decimals here. The longest decimal here has 2 places. So we would multiply by 100. Both sides have to do the same thing to both sides. So multiplying by 100 will give me 2 on the left side. Multiplying 0.8 by 100, one jump goes over the 8, and it becomes 80 for the second jump, for the second 0 there. Use your calculator if you're not comfortable jumping your decimal place over. Okay, so I can divide both of those by 2 to simplify further, which will give me a 1, and 80 divided by 2 is 40. And lucky last question, number 6, I have a fraction. There is only one fraction this time, so I just need to multiply both sides by 5. That's the number on the bottom of my fraction. 3 times 5 is 15. Okay, 1 and 2/5 is a little bit trickier. Let's type that one in. 1 and 2/5 times by 5 is 7. 7's a prime number, so that's not going to be able to be simplified anymore. So they should be the answers that you got for those questions. Hopefully you got all those right. Keep practicing, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.